Parents take large chunk of young soldier's wedding money, probably kill his career as well. Obligatory, I'm a fan of this sub. This happened about 15 years ago. At the time, my spouse was working at an officers' club at a military installation. Nowadays, most military bases have just one club, an officer and an enlisted, but this base still had two. The officers' club was much nicer than the enlisted club, so it was common for military members to hold events there. My spouse was the assistant manager of the night shift, as she was going to school during the day. On this particular evening, there was a young active-duty military wedding reception. They were both Samoan, and the groom was an enlisted serviceman. I make note of the nationality of the couple, as Samoan families are very large, and special events can have hundreds in attendance. I was not there, but my spouse told me all of the event. At the entrance to the reception, there was a large box with a slit in it. This was a donation box for the young couple to help them for the future. Samoans are very generous with the families, so each donation was more than $20. There was likely thousands of dollars in the box. Everyone has a great time at the reception, and as the evening winds down, only the immediate family is left. The family gathers around the donation box, now opened. Here is where it gets dicey. The mother and father of the bride or groom, I have no idea which one it was, reaches in and grabs a large chunk of money. Apparently, it's their share. I have no idea if this is common in Samoan culture, but this is what happened. After the parents got their money, they just left the club. All the money was needed not only for the future, but for the very immediate future. You see, it appears that the couple was relying on that money to pay for the bill. The young married couple now does the stupidest thing imaginable. They leave the club and start to head off for the base. The officers' club is about a 3 to 4 mile drive from the main gate, which allowed the acting manager sufficient time to contact security police. The front gate, which is the only exit at this time, does an immediate stop and search for all outgoing vehicles and easily finds the bride and groom. They are escorted back to the club. Once at the club, they have to meet the manager. Since they were so young and low in rank, they needed what is in effect a co-signer for the event. The groom's commander, an army captain, had co-signed. The manager contacted him first to see if he could pay for the event, to which the captain replied no, as he didn't have enough funds. After many hours, my wife usually got home at around 11 p.m. It was around 2 a.m. when she got home. Meeting with the manager, a payment plan was set up for the young couple. I'm not sure of the entire bill, but since this was the military, their payment was going to come direct from their paycheck until it was paid off in full. I'm sure there was extensive administrative punishment as well. Unfortunately, I have no idea. I just hope the parents had fun with their share. Our next story was posted by user VividAssassin101, titled, Mum Tries Cutting in Line at Bootcamp Graduation. This was at my boyfriend's brother's, my best friend, graduation from bootcamp. There was an active duty soldier who directed us into 2 lanes to be screened before entering the area they were graduating in. I quickly ran to where the newly formed line was, as I had been there since 4:30 and I wanted to make sure I had the best seat possible to see him graduate. This middle-aged woman walked in front of me and the following conversation occurred. Woman says, I've been here since 4:30. I'm not letting some kid cut in front of me. You're letting my whole family in front. Excuse me? I've been here just as long, plus I got here first. Again, you're letting me in front. There's no way you'd be up at this early for this. You didn't raise any of the graduates. I raised mine for 19 years. I'll have you know that one of those graduates is my fudging brother. We might only be friends, but we've known each other forever. She didn't need to know that. And if you think I'm going to let you in front of me, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. I want to mention, had this woman not said her first statement, I wouldn't have said anything. But eventually, one of the officers noticed us yelling at each other, and she backed off to the end of the line once they approached her, after noticing how ticked the witnesses were around me. It was a beautiful graduation outside of that though, which is something. Our next story was posted by user FrostWarrior99, titled, Entitled Parent Calls Me a Tramp on Airplane. I have been lurking here for a while, and I finally have a story to tell. I am on mobile, so sorry for any bad spelling or grammar. EP is entitled parent, and me is me. So to start off, I am male, but I wear my hair in a ponytail, so it is hard to tell from just looking at the back. I was flying to see my grandparents after Christmas. On the flight was a family with 2 kids and their mum. One kid were around 4 and the others less than a year old. I assumed the dad wasn't there because I didn't see him the entire time. When we landed, I grabbed my stuff, and when I walked into the aisle, I felt that my pants had slipped down less than an inch from my waist, so I pulled them back up. Little did I know that the mum was a Karen, and saying, "What are you doing in front of my son?" Me keeps moving, thinks she's not talking to me. "Don't walk away from me." So I turn around and say, "Can I help you with something? How dare you show off your undergarments like a tramp in front of my son?" "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about. I saw you pull down your pants and pull them back up." "No, I just adjusted them because they slipped down a bit." "I saw you voluptuously pull down your pants in front of my son. You tramp!" First of all, I'm a male. Second, if I did that, I'd be considered a pedophile. Now please leave me alone and let me deboard. Have a good day. Karen says, "Get back here!" and I flip Karen the bird. As I deboarded, all I heard was her unintelligible screams and her trying to be held back by the flight crew. Our next story was posted by user FlippyIsKing18, titled, Entitled Kid assaults me with a bat, then steals my bike, and his mum calls the cops on me for taking it back. This happened over 10 years ago when I was still in grade school. Okay, so when I was a kid, me and my mum lived in a trailer park, and it sucked. The people there were crazy, the house was falling apart, and it was just a mess. But the worst person I knew was this one guy, entitled Kid, who was the same age as me. So, of course, my mum and his mum tried for the very first day I was there to get us to become friends. Entitled Kid was a real jerk from the beginning. He was extremely biased about who he played with, had a mouth like an Irishman, and would pick on anybody who didn't abide by his wants and rules. Example, I had my Game Boy with me one time and he wanted to play on it. I told him no. The very next day, I was called to the office because I was bullying him by not sharing my toys. And then, he made up another lie about me crying in front of the principal, which he used to get everyone to pick on me for being a crybaby. That is just one example, but this story is the worst one. Now, when I was 10, my mom got me a really awesome bike. It was a chopper Schwinn that looked like a Harley-Davidson motorcycle with bike pedals. I rode it everywhere I went, and of course, it got a lot of looks from the neighborhood boys. Entitled Kid was one of them. One day, he had come to my neighbor's house, who I was playing with some game with, my bike laying on the grass. He comes up to me and was like, "Hey, OP, let's go play in the park." The trailer park had its own little playground that all the kids would go to and play on every day. I never went there because nobody would come with me. So I, being a stupid kid, fell for it, and got on my bike. Neighbor followed me. Entitled Kid was there waiting for us when we got there, and for the first time, we were playing together. We went in the jungle gym, and laughing, talking like real friends would. Suddenly, he was out of my sight for a minute, and then I felt a really sharp pain in my back. I dropped to the ground, and all I heard was, "Run!" I got to my feet, and noticed Entitled Kid was on my bike, riding it as fast as he could down the street, with the neighbor right behind him. Right beside me was a softball bat. I ran after them, but me being a pudgy guy, I couldn't catch up to them. So in tears, I went straight home and told my mum everything. She immediately got her coat, and we drove right to Entitled Kid's house. And sure enough, my bike was there, laying on the grass on his lawn. Mum went straight for the front door and banged on it, loudly. Coming to the door was Entitled Mother, looking like a prostitute. No, seriously, she looked awful. Sagging skin, smoking a cigarette, wearing a tube top, all the sexy stuff. I can't remember the exact dialogue, but it consisted of my mum telling her about what happened, and her not showing the least bit of interest. She even laughed a few times, but I did hear her at one point saying, "Boys will be boys," before taking another draw on her cigarette. And yes, EntitledKid was staring through a window, making faces at me. Eventually, Entitled Mother just slammed the door. Mum told me to grab my bike. I did, and started to ride it back home. Mum driving in front of me. Everything was going back to normal. I went home and had supper. My back was hurting pretty bad, and Mum was telling me that I took a giant bruise from the attack. Then we heard a pounding on our door. I opened it up, and standing at the stairs was 2 police officers, with Entitled Mother standing on our lawn with EntitledKid on my bike. Entitled Mother says, "There he is, that's him." Police Officer 1. "Hey, this lady says you stole her son's bike. Is your mum home?" What? That's my bike." "Just go get your mum, kid." Mum comes to the door and starts to talk with the cops outside. Both her and Entitled Mother were raising their voices while I looked on from the front door, which was glass, so I could see perfectly with it being closed. I couldn't quite hear what they were saying, but it sure looked like Entitled Mum was just talking out of her ass, and Entitled Kid was just riding around on my bike, looking like he was going to get himself a free ride. Then my mum opened the door and says, "Opie, come out here." And I did. Police Officer 1 says, "Your mum said that this kid hit you with a bat." Entitled Mother, "Which he didn't." Entitled Kid, "Yeah." Suddenly, Mum spins me around and lifts my shirt, and I couldn't see her face, but I did hear Entitled Mother a slight, "Oh." And that was enough for the cops to suddenly turn their attention to them, and they approached Entitled Kid and told him to get off the bike. He wasn't budging, still saying it was his bike. Entitled Mother literally pulled him off the bike, and he landed side first onto the concrete driveway. He started to cry, but did I feel sorry for him? Of course not. Before I knew it, Entitled Mother was being handcuffed. She started spewing out obscenities and blaming me for turning her son into a little idiot. Entitled Kid was taken home, where he would eventually be taken away to be with family, I guess. So in the end, Entitled Mother got arrested and charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor, child abuse, and from what Mum could tell me years later, something that had to do with drugs. Pretty sure she was taking them, but for all I know, she could have been selling them. All I know is, she was put away for close to 7 years for all of that. Entitled Kid, however, was let off the hook. Apparently he was underage, he couldn't be charged with battery. All I know is, I didn't see much of him after this. He had moved in with his dad, I think. The reason why I suddenly remember all of this is because just recently, I had seen a mugshot of a guy being arrested for attempted robbery of a gas station. Sure enough, it was him. Entitled Kid, all grown up, obviously still a jerk, but now with karma biting him square in the butt. Hope both of them get help soon, but also hope I never see any of them ever again. Our next story was posted by user Rosanna_Ray, titled, "Entitled Mother Screams at My Dance Team for Speaking Their Native Language." So this happened Monday afternoon during our 7th period final, and oh boy, do I regret not getting it on video. For a little background, I am on my high school's hip-hop crew, and this week was finals week. Since the main thing we do well is dance, we were asked to bring food for a party as our final. Now, I live close to the US-Mexico border, so about 90+% of my school is largely populated with the Latino community. I am Latina myself. This is important later. There is a girl on my team that does not speak a word of English, which is also important. Now, Entitled Mother is a well-known chef that got the opportunity to cook for Queen Elizabeth and the Senate at the US Capitol. On to the story. I'm booking it downstairs and across the school from English to be sure to grab my party stuff from the locker room before it closes. Luckily, I made it on time and managed to grab my things and head out. I look down the hallway and everyone is setting up the tables and the food. Enter Entitled Mother. For this story, we will call her Rita. I walk up with a smile and say hellos. Rita seemed kind at first, getting along with the dancers and our teacher. Setting my things down, I walk over to my friend and we begin to chat. After a few minutes of setting up the barbecue, our teacher leaves to go grab plastic knives, start her office. We all wait, and two dancers are starting talking about tamales in Spanish, asking who brought them and where they should put them. Cue Rita. Stop speaking Spanish! The two girls look at her confused and chimed, What? Apparently, this was not the correct response, because Rita begins screaming like a banshee, embarrassing her daughter in the process. I said stop speaking Spanish. It's rude. Not all of us speak Spanish. Be mindful. The entire crew stands silent in shock. You could practically feel tension rising, hear everyone's hearts pound. And after a few moments of silence, a dancer finally speaks up. Well, not all of us speak English. Don't discriminate us because we're speaking our native language. If anything, that's rude. Rita, however, is not having it. Bullcrap! I don't care! Don't speak Spanish! Rita's daughter, who we will all call Kia, tugs at her mum's shirt. Mum, just stop. Go home, please. This woman started walking down the hallway screaming. I don't have a problem with the language. Yo, realmente, no. I don't give a frick if you all hate me. Just don't take it out of my frickin' daughter. Nearly every crew member is sobbing, eyes red and puffy with tears just soaking their cheeks. Kia begins to apologize profusely for her mother, red in the face and on the verge of tears herself. I give her a hug, assuring her it's not her fault and parents will have their moments at times, even if it's the wrong way. She sits down and I go around, giving the crew hugs and a shoulder to cry on, asking if they're okay or how they felt. The party went on and the incident was soon forgotten. The part that shocked me the most is that she is Latina herself, had the audacity to walk into a school where 90% are Latino and about 83% speak Spanish, then speak Spanish herself? How entitled do you have to be to discriminate a language that you speak fluently and a culture you were born into? Our next story was posted by user TonyTheCat1_YT, titled, That Entitled Mum at the Bowling Alley? Her husband and I are now friends. Happy ending. As well as his kid, I showed him the posts I made and he had a great laugh from them. The two are getting a divorce after she's being released, because there have been 5 similar incidents like the ones at the bowling alley, but not to the extent of that one. Now he is letting me use his real name, which is Randall. He and I actually like to bowl together a lot, and his kid, named Tyler, used with permission, is doing well. I've taught him a lot of bowling stuff, and he's very by the book and visual learner. His highest is 97, and he's only 9. I'm happy to know that this story has a good ending. If you guys want to understand what the hell that story was, go look at it in the description, go find this story. There's a link to the original one. And our next story was posted by user LightRay1943, titled, She Stole My Wraith and Got Mad When I Took It Back. So this is the top of I don't live with my fiancé. I live with my parents and he lives in a small apartment. We plan on spending our honeymoon moving into our new house that's waiting for us. Anyway, my fiancé let me put up some Christmas decorations up around the apartment, because I've never been able to decorate my parents' house without my sisters always having some input. I had bought this pretty pastel wraith from a flea market from this woman who made her own Christmas decorations. It had pink and silver and gold ornaments glued onto a silver-colored wraith, and I loved it so much I hung it outside the apartment door. The day after Christmas, my fiancé and I came back from our parents' house, only to find my wraith gone. I was confused and kinda sad, only to notice it hung up on the apartment door about 3 doors down. I pointed to it and he just says to go get it while he unlocked the door. I ran quickly to the door, snatched the wraith and ran back into our apartment, where he quickly shut and locked it. In the morning, I was making my fiancé breakfast when I heard someone knocking at the door. Just by the knock, I could tell that they were mad. I opened it and found an angry lady on the other side. She was dressed in PJs and a messy bun, and says, "Where's the Wraith?" Not, "Hi, how are you?" "Why, the what?" I played dumb. "You know what I'm talking about. The Wraith, where is it?" I just shrug. "I know you have it, just give it back." She didn't yell at me, she just tried using her mum voice on me. "What makes you think I have it?" She then realized that the only way she was going to tell me she knew that I had the Wraith, without admitting it, that she took it first. She just tells me to go frick myself and walks back to her apartment. Our next story was posted by user Captain Marv3L, titled, "Mum becomes furious when I go to a funeral instead of seeing her." So this was several years ago when I was a junior in college. I, unfortunately, got a call from my father that my great-grandfather has passed away. We knew it was coming. He was in his 90s and it wasn't looking good for a while, but it still hurt. I felt I had a good relationship with him. My father used to take my siblings and me to go visit, and he would tell us stories about what he did in World War II. The funeral happened to land on a day I didn't have work. The next day, though, I did have to go in, and I couldn't afford to miss a shift. That meant that the trip would be a flyby. I drove 2 hours into town, and we would do the service, the salute, the burial, and I would forego the dinners for driving home. I get to town, get dressed in black, and make myself look presentable, and leave my vehicle at my father's house. I ride with stepmom and dad to the service. I had, mistakenly, mentioned that I had a funeral in town to my mother. That's when it started. She texts me, "Are you going to come visit?" "No, I don't have time." "I would love to see you though." "Mum, I really can't. This isn't a social call, it's a funeral." "Oh no, it's a social call, just not for this side of the family. You always make special trips to come see your father, but never me. You're just stuck up." Me, thinking, really? Of course I don't come to see you, you're gaslighting cow? Now, you're just trying to guilt trip me while at a funeral for a family member you said you actually care about? I get so frustrated. I'm outside waiting for the service to start at this point. She's sending messages on how I don't care about that side of the family, how I owe it to her to come visit, how I raised you, you have to come see me, how much she hates my dad's side of the family. I want to cry and chuck my phone at the same time. My stepmom, who I love dearly, told me to turn my phone off and take a few breaths and come inside, which I did. After the 21 gun salute and final goodbyes, I went back to college, ignoring every message and call she sent my way. I ended up chatting with my boyfriend until I finally got home. To this day, it still pees me off. It's not the first time she's done this, but I never thought that she would sink so low. She wonders why we have an extremely strained relationship now. Yet she calls my dad to gloat how close we are. We aren't, and my dad finds it funny. I have more stories of her, like the time she and my stepdad and herself yell at me for being a terrible daughter when I got the flu. She has issues and makes things up all the time. And our last story was posted by a user, Bada Bing Bada Bam, titled, "Entitled Parent Thinks Their Child Deserves Everything in the Airport." Sorry for the bad formatting, I'm on mobile and English is my first language, I'm just bad at spelling. This happened after some years ago, so some of the details may be fuzzy. Let me set the scene. It's Auckland Airport, I'm waiting for my flight to Brisbane, hell yeah, go Brisbane, in a coffee shop where a mother and her crotch goblin sits next to me. Enter the cast. Me, someone, I don't know, entitled mother, entitled weirdo, and EK, the entitled weirdo's dweeb. I'm sitting down enjoying a nice iced coffee, playing some random video games, when EntitledKid, who's around 9 or 10, comes behind me and politely asks me what I'm doing. I explain to him that I'm playing. EntitledKid asks if he could play, and I say sure. I was in a training map so I wouldn't lose any ELO. He played for 10 minutes or so when his mum was ordering. The entitled mother that comes back and loses it. Entitled mother says, "What are you doing to my child?" He's just playing a game. He's just letting me have the game. What EntitledKid said shocked me. I merely told him that he could play, not have the game. I don't know how he could have the game. It was on Steam. I didn't say you could have it. I just said you could try it. It's on my computer anyway, so you would have to take it to have it. Well, I guess you'll just have to give me the computer then. We continued arguing about whether she could have the computer. Then one of my servers came over and says, "What's the problem here?" Before I could say anything, Entitled Mother fired back. "This doesn't concern you in your condescending tone. I demand a refund for my food." She had already had about $50 worth of overpriced airport food. The server went over and called the manager over. When the manager came over, Entitled Mother flat out only told him, "Where the hell is my refund?" The manager in the end just told her to get out. And like the pathetic wolf she was, she huffed and puffed and continued to do that till she left. But before she left, she flipped me the bird and spilt my iced coffee. The cafe offered to replace it, but I declined. In the end, I still had my laptop and got onto my flight with almost no problems. That is until I saw Entitled Mother and Entitled Kid in the line for my flight. Luckily, she was a whole 15 or so rows away from me, but still gave me condescending looks every time she walked past me. I replied to her with a smile. So it turned out okay. Still annoying though. Edit, I was playing Brawlhalla. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that story. Tell me what you think about it down in the description below. Channel is doing really well as of recently. Like, I'm not doing as good as the other EntitledParents story channels, but they've been going solid for like a year now. I've been so like bad with my schedule. I'm going to try and keep it up with 2 videos a day. I might fall behind sometimes because training is getting pretty intense over here. And I've got a job hopefully soon. Anyway, that's my life. Tell me a little bit about your life and I'll see what you guys are up to. Anyway, I hope you have a good day and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!